Okay. So we're going to look at the HERM and CARE mobility score. And so this is for the mental status, so checking patients upon arrival. So Harmony, just checking your alert here, and you are. And then I'm just gonna, if you're able to follow commands, if you're able to follow 2 out of the 3, that's good. That's what we want. So can you stick your tongue out for me? Good. Can you blink your eyes? Awesome. Can you shake your head up and down? Great. Okay, so now I am checking for the potential barriers. So I'm checking to see if she's on any ventilation, which I'm also checking for her pain level. So if you're in pain, scale from 0 to 10, and then 10 being need to go to the emergency room. Definitely a 10 because we're in the ICU. Okay. And I'm gonna check to see if she's on any tubing or anything like that, which she's, and also lastly checking to see if she's on any drips. All right, so Harmony, now I'm going to check your functional. So I'm gonna ask you to raise your leg with your knee straight against gravity. So go ahead, right leg for me, straight up. Awesome. And then the opposite. Great. And so the patient should have approximately hip flexion and should be in a supine or semi-recumbent. Otherwise, the score is a 0. So now I'm going to check your arms. And I'll ask you to raise each arm separately with the perfect. And the other. Great. So I have at least 45 degrees of shoulder flexion and can find or sitting position. Awesome. So
Okay, so first for bed mobility, we're doing supine to sit. During this, the patient is asked to move in the bed from supine or semi-recumbent to the sitting position. If the patient is unable to initiate the task, then physical assistance as well as verbal and tactile cues are offered by the clinician in order to complete the task. Okay, second for mobility is static sitting, balance on the side of bed once position is established. The level of assistance should be determined once the patient assumes the sitting position. Next, moving into transfers, there's sit to stand. From the sitting position on the side of the bed, wheelchair or chair or recliner, the patient is asked to move into the standing position. Okay, second for transfers is static standing balance once the position was established. The level of assistance should be determined once the patient assumes a standing position. Next, under transfers is transfer from bed to chair or chair to bed. The patient is asked to move from the bed to a chair, wheelchair, stretcher chair, or recliner, or to move from any of those options back to the bed. If the patient was already out of bed and did not return to bed, the activity should be scored as not assessed. Next is gait. Gait activity is defined as a sequence of foot movements in which the complete gait cycle is completed several times. During the gait activity, the patient can use a walker, cane, any other assisted device, or walk without an assisted device. Steps along the bed or during transfers should not be considered gait. Last, we have endurance. Endurance is defined as distance walked in 2 minutes, including sitting or standing rest periods, with or without an assisted device, and regardless of level or assistance required. The patient is asked to walk as tolerated for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is defined by having a clinician monitor for a continuous 2-minute period on a watch. The total distance covered in 2 minutes is recorded. When walking, the patient is allowed to take standing or sitting rest breaks as needed. Any resting periods should be included in the 2-minute period.
The stroke impact scale is a set of 59 questions that the patient is asked to evaluate how their stroke has impacted their health and life. We as providers want to know from the patient's point of view how their stroke has affected them. We will ask them 59 questions about impairments and disabilities caused by their stroke, as well as how stroke has affected their quality of life. At the end of the questionnaire, we will ask the patient to rate how much they think they have recovered from their stroke. The scale is from 0 all the way to 100.
This is the 5 times sit-to-stand test. This measures functional strength of lower extremities that also can be useful in quantifying functional change of transitional movements. The patient sits with their arms folded across their chest and their back against the standard chair with arms. The chair is not to be against a wall or mat. Tell the patient to stand up and sit down 5 times as quickly as they can when the therapist says go. Timing begins at go and ends when their buttocks touches the chair after the 5th repetition. Provide 1 practice trial before measurements are recorded. An inability to complete 5 reps without assistance or use of upper extremity support indicates failure of the test. Modifications should be documented. Document speed and assistance level.
This is the box and blocks test. A box is placed in front of a patient. One side is filled with 150 blocks. The patient must try to move as many blocks one at a time to the other side of the box in 60 seconds. The box and blocks test assesses unilateral gross manual dexterity.